Welcome to Thursday Confessions. Today I wanted to speak about performativity and power, which is by no means a new subject, but I wanted to offer my 2 cents on it. The talk, as per usual, will consist of 3 parts. In the first one, I will cover my personal relationship with the subject. Then I will proceed to speak about quite an exciting research done by communication science researcher Michael A. Lithgow, where he considers performativity and its effects on the public decision-making outcome. And finally, I will proceed to speak about what can be done to disrupt the power structures imposed by performative setting. So, exactly 10 years ago now, back in July 2015, I was going through a bit of a dark time in terms of the state of mind I was in. Back then, I rediscovered creative writing and, in a way, used it as a tool to help myself get better. I started a blog titled areyoureallywithme.com because, honestly, I felt like I was not really connected to the outside world, and that connection was re-established through writing. The blog is still available, by the way, feel free to have a look, which I also do from time to time, and recently I have stumbled upon an essay which I've written called A Well-Rehearsed Performance, also known as Life, which I wrote in the very beginning of this dark phase in my life. In it, I have pointed out, in a very dramatic and yet, as it felt at the time, very truthful tone, that everything you see in me is a well-rehearsed performance. A performance I practiced for life. Because that's what it felt like back in the day, that there were so many norms in my daily communication with people that I did not feel like I had the space to express my true thoughts and feelings. Which is definitely the reason why I was so drawn to performing. I wrote how liberating it felt to swear on stage, to be able to hate on stage, because when complying with the norms of conduct in my life, I have not had the space for those unwanted feelings to emerge. And I needed that space badly. Back then, psychotherapy, dance therapy, and some new opportunities to express myself creatively really saved my sanity. And I'm grateful to say that today I feel much better. I feel like I've truly become a different person. But this life-altering experience in my life has taught me about the importance of performative practices, how they are really crucial for a healthy, balanced life. So this is one side of performativity, it being a form of expression, but it can also work in the opposite direction, as a form of oppression. And here we come to the second part of the talk, in which I want to introduce an academic paper, The Theatre of Public Engagement, Performativity and Power at the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, abbreviated simply as CRTC. This paper was published in 2018 by the already mentioned communication researcher Lithgow, and in his research he took a closer look at a big public hearing held by CRTC during a major review of TV regulations. But instead of just asking who said what, he focused on how people spoke and how they performed their roles in that space. His assumption was that this whole thing is more about performance than participation. And sure enough, he found that the way people acted, that tone, that style, even the moments of shared laughter, all of this shaped whether the ideas were taken seriously or ignored. And so the whole claim about the inclusivity of the Canadian public in this hearing appeared to be dubious because it was not about what was being said, but more about how everything was staged. According to Lithgow's findings, it seemed that performative elements, of which he had separated 2 categories, performance space, including its physical layout, arrangement of furniture, decoration as well as atmosphere, and certain unwritten rules of conduct, all of these things actually helped regulate the whole conversation. They decided which voices got heard and what kind of language was acceptable. And of course, which ideas counted as real policy and which ones were dismissed as emotional noise. But how did he actually study this whole theater of public engagement? Well, basically, he dove deep into the huge public consultation held by CRTC. And as he writes in his paper, he conducted ethnographic observation during public hearings for Let's Talk TV, which was held in September 2014 in Quebec, Canada. There were 122 presentations, which resulted in over 1,000 pages of transcript. And while attending the hearings, he looked for actions and gestures that fell outside of the rational norms, how people were dressed and how they spoke, including jokes or displays of emotion and any other form of embodied participation. He observed the style and form of presentations, and in addition, he reviewed the transcripts to correlate his observations with verbatim or word by word records of what was being discussed. He was also specifically looking for annotations of laughter in the transcripts, which, according to him, very much influenced what counted as a valid argument. And, of course, who got dismissed by what he called lucid pleasures or humorous moments. Then he applied theories of performativity, mainly referring to Judith Butler, but also ideas of French philosopher Michel Foucault. And that's how he showed that the CRTC created a performance of democracy, because it looked like everyone had a voice, but according to the researcher, the script was already written before the conversation even happened. So in a way, he treated the whole public hearing like a play. He studied the set design, the actors, the lighting, and the script. And then he asked, who was actually directing this thing? In answering that, Lithgow concluded that it was the apparatus of the CRTC, which, according to him, operates to exclude diversity in the public hearings, in this way narrowing down the slice of reality being determined. The CRTC public hearing, he writes, like most formal procedures of governments in Western liberal democracies, is explicitly ruled by rationalism, that is, evidence-based rational decision-making. I am not suggesting that the CRTC intentionally structures hearings to exclude diversity of participation, but rather that there are phenomena of discourse that operates as policing mechanism, keeping the conversation moving along certain channels of thinking. End of quote. In simple terms, the performative norms of a public hearing, which are taken for granted in hearings in any Western liberal democracies, according to him, actually act as a way to censor the conversation from the voices that are being dismissed because they do not comply with those norms. And this brings me to the third aspect of this conversation, and an explanation why, when introducing the subject of performativity and power, I have actually referred to the performance of what is now known as a protest haka. It was performed in New Zealand's parliament by Maori MPs on 14th of November 2024. This haka was meant to disrupt the voting on a contentious bill that could reinterpret an 184-year-old treaty between the British and indigenous Maori. If you haven't seen this spectacular disruption, and I mean spectacular both literally and metaphorically, I will put down the links to its original documentation, because it is definitely a sight. This Haka protest swiftly caused disruption, not only in Parliament, where the voting has been paused, but also in the streets, where public support was mobilized and sparkled nationwide protest, including a march and large rallies, highlighting deep public anxiety over the bill. At the same time, the video recording of the Haka has also traveled the world and currently has over 5.8 million views of its original publication on YouTube. And of course, countless remakes, including my own short, which I couldn't help but share. And although it cannot be connected by direct cause and effect relationship, but the bill eventually has been dismissed in April 2025. And this decision could have been influenced by the Haka intervention. But of course, this intervention came at a price. In June 2025, the Parliament has imposed record suspensions as a disciplinary action against the Haka protest. which resulted in the youngest Maori MP, Mabe Clark, being suspended for 7 days, and the other participants, Debbie Garewa Packer and Rawiri Waititi, for the whole 21 days. This decision has been criticized as a colonial bias because it was issued in response to a cultural protest in defense of Maori rights. However, the supporters of it claim that it is only fair to have such punishment because the actions violated parliamentary order and safety rules. And if we go back to Lithgow's research findings, we might also add that it has probably violated the unwritten rules of performativity, meant to regulate the conversation and keep it moving along certain channels of thinking. As such, this Haka performance has steered the flow of the conversation in a different direction, showing the power struggle between two aesthetics, and, in my view, proving the point that decision making, even in liberal democracies, is by no means ruled by rationalism exceptionally. The director of the performance of the decision making apparatus is a certain embodied aesthetic, and even when it claims neutrality, it still can become an oppressive force. Because no conversation is ever neutral. So perhaps it is time to acknowledge performativity as a part of the decision making process, so we could make more sense of it. Because by asking the questions, whose performance is being accepted as a norm and whose performance is being policed, we can actually gain a lot of clarity about the invisible power struggle, which only becomes visible when performativity of the decision-making process is being addressed. Thank you for listening, and see you next Thursday.